Hey everyone, and welcome to The Future Belongs to Creators. My name is Miguel, and I'm joined with my co-hosts Charlie and Haley. Say hi, ladies.
Hi.
Oh, hey.
All right.
Look how well behaved we are.
Yeah, look at that. You would never know. You would never know the things that we say. Well, no.
off stream.
I already regret saying that. Never mind. Anyways, so lovely to see you all. Haley, for those of you who are tuning into the video feed, is in a lovely cabin. It's really very jealous.
I am. It's not a bad view. It's not a bad situation. It's gonna. Yeah. I traveled with my mic, so I'm like,
Oh yeah.
I feel really cool holding the mic like this. Just it's like a
You
whole
look
different
cool too, don't
experience.
worry.
You're like a game show host. I love it. All right. Well, today we are doing something we haven't done in a little bit, which is a Q&A session. So I really like these episodes because they're kind of loose and fun, and we kind of get to talk about whatever our audience wants us to talk about. Of course, we also have a few things that we can bring up and talk about too. But for anybody who has any questions and is watching live, this is one of the benefits of showing up live, is that you get to ask any question you want and we'll talk about it. So while you're thinking on that, I was thinking maybe something that I was interested in was something that Charlie's doing with, I noticed, I follow her on Instagram, and I noticed that she did something kind of cool, which was she's very transparent about her income and how her side hustle and her main hustle kind of coincide with each other, and kind of how she balances that, and how she gets income from those things. So my question is to Charlie about, why do you choose to do that? You don't have to do that, obviously. So what is the reason for doing that? Oh, hold on.
Sorry. Before we answer, for everyone that's listening, Ben over here in the chat, Ben on our team and Miguel are really good friends. And I just found it really comical that Ben in the chat, as Miguel was asking his question, Ben is asking the exact same question, which just goes to show that you guys really are two peas. And I love your relationship. You're two peas in a pod. They used to have a Yeah, there we go. They used to have a Friday chat just to talk about things they liked.
How cute
Oh
is
yeah,
that?
no. We called it the Finer Things Club from The Office. And we just got together and just chatted about whatever we thought was cool and nerdy. But now we just play video games all the time after work. So we just chat then. So the meeting is no longer a thing because now we just run around and play PlayStation. So
I was upset because I asked if I could I love talking about things that I like. I love talking about stuff like that. It's so enjoyable for me. And I was like, I was trying to book a meeting with Ben or with Miguel. I can't remember. And I was like, what's this finer clubs meeting? What is this? Like, I
yeah,
feel
she was
like
creeping on my GCal. Yeah.
I felt like I had to be a part of it. But maybe now, Charlie, I apologize for the interruption. Back to regular scheduled programming. Charlie.
So wait, Miguel, your question is why do I do this? And then Ben is asking what's the emotional process of sharing it. So I guess you did have both slightly different questions.
So I
but
guess
you
his
landed on the same
question
topic.
is way more thoughtful than mine. I mean, that's a very the way he phrased it is a lot more, I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
tactful.
Well, I think they're both good questions, honestly, because you're right, Miguel. You don't have to share that level of detail. Like, no one's making you. You got to share it with the
Mhm.
tax man, but that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I do this though because of how much value I've gotten from seeing similar reports from other creators. Our very own Nathan Barry has written some really, really useful income reports over the years that, especially when I was getting started as a creator and perhaps when he was doing more non-ConvertKit things, it was really interesting for me to see where he was spending his time and what was generating income from him. So it's useful for that aspect, seeing what other creators choose to focus on in terms of income streams, but also showing the potential of some of them as well. Like, until I heard that someone had like a 6-figure course launch, which to us like now maybe sounds fairly normal. Like, we sort of hear this story a lot. But several years ago, when I heard that for the first time, I think it was Sean McCabe I first heard this from. I was like, what? You can make that much money from launching a course? Are you kidding me? And it sort of just showed me what's possible as a creator. So that's why I do it. And over the years, I've gotten more and more comfortable sharing more and more details. Like, I started my first report, which I think is 4 years ago now, just reporting in percentages. So this is something we do as part of our creator stories on the ConvertKit blog, is show what portions of income are relative to each other. So like 20% from products, 50% from YouTube, that sort of thing. I just reported in percentages for that first year, first few years. But then I guess over the past few years, I've gotten really comfortable talking about money more, kind of breaking down this taboo. I started out sharing my salary history in a video last January, I think. And since then, I've just like slowly opened up more and more talking about money.
And that
So
piece got picked up quite a bit from different
Mhm.
publications, which was cool.
Yeah, it was cool. And it which is cool, but also kind of sad that just someone talking about their salary was worthy of a news article, because it is such a taboo thing. And that, someone talking about it made literal news was an interesting thing. But yeah, so this report goes into detail of everything, like real numbers behind every stream of income that I've earned. Some of them are like, you look at them and you're like, oh, you're telling me you only made 17 pounds from selling merch. I'm like, yep. That's what I'm sharing with you.
Yep.
This did not generate much
I
income
love
for
that.
me.
I love anything that makes taboo things not taboo
Mhm.
anymore, because especially when it comes to money, because
Mm.
I feel like everybody loses in that. Like, if it's this thing that you hold close to your chest and you don't talk about, especially in a community like the creator community, where there's such a everybody helping each other out kind of
Mhm.
mentality, and like this very close knit sort of everybody wants other people to succeed, and it's not this sort of like cutthroat business. It's always really cool to see that sort of transparency, because there's so many unknowns to becoming a creator, and I feel like you have to sort of piecemeal it together by watch some YouTube videos on how these people did it, and you
Yeah.
follow some creators, and then you follow newsletters, and you go to meetups, and you sort of have to kind of like figure it all out, and just people who are just sort of lay it all out on the line and say, this is me, this is what I do, this is how it all breaks down, might help somebody getting started maybe make that decision. And ultimately, I mean, if somebody asks me how much money I make, I don't think that that's rude. My instinct is to think it's rude, but
Mhm.
then
That's what you're
one
told,
of the
right? Yeah.
right, exactly. But I mean, maybe part of it is working at ConvertKit where everybody here is very much about transparency. And right now I could log on and look at our salary scales, and I may not necessarily know what sort of level a specific person is at, but I can look at a certain role and say, okay, a
Mhm.
level 2 person that is doing this in our company makes this much money. And that I feel like makes it less taboo, and makes it less weird, and it makes it easier to plan your careers and have conversations that are fair. And I don't know. Anyway, rant over.
No, agreed on all of it, Miguel. And I honestly wish that creators were more transparent when it comes to this sort of thing. I found it really difficult as a creator to like know what to charge for a sponsorship, for example. There's some people out
Mhm.
there who will tell you, but you really have to get close to someone, like close enough to a creator friend to ask for advice on it. And even then, I found that a lot of the times they will give advice to me, but it won't be based on saying, well, I had this sponsorship and I charged this much. It was more like, maybe you should charge in this range. So I think it's something that we still need to work on breaking, and that I wish, I wish there was more of it.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of still, we're in a period of time where influencer marketing, if for a sponsorship, for example, it's unknown territory. Not
Yeah.
like we haven't been doing it long enough to where there's these set prices, right? It feels like every company is different. Every company weights these things totally differently. Every company has different experiences as far as how influencer marketing, generates more for their business. And so it's such a game. And so I think that one of the things, the lessons here though, in sponsorship specifically, I've had this conversation so many times, is people undervaluing like what they bring to the table, or their audience or fans, like how they're essentially how much their audience and how much their fans like really value their opinion. And you just have to, that's one of those places where you have to know your audience so well to understand your value, because if you have an unengaged audience, then your value is not going to be there. But it's a really interesting unknown territory for sure. But I second what Miguel said on I don't think it's weird. I talk about money probably too much sometimes. I don't think it's weird at all. But specifically like female to, woman to woman in the business world, it feels like it's always been a place where women to some degree we'll say the last, it's slowly changing, but over the last 100 years, it feels like it's a place where women have been taken advantage of. And so
Oh yeah.
I find that when I have peers, and I did this with Alexis Teichmiller, a lot, when she was on our team, and we still talk about it today. But where I was at every salary level, at every job I've ever had, and it was just a really helpful tool for her, because then she had a baseline. And this is before ConvertKit had standardized salaries. And you hear Nathan and Barrett tweet about this a lot. How do you get good employees or good, hire good team members? And they're like, standardize your salaries. Like that's one of the ways that you can make the hiring process so much easier. But anyways, we could talk about money all day long, man. There's so many different rabbit holes on the money side of
front.
things. Yeah.
I feel like I didn't probably answer Ben's part of the question of the emotional process of sharing it. Because I will say that it is scary to be that transparent, because that anyone who is close to you is not going to judge you for it or think negatively of you for it or things like that. But there's always going to be people out there who think that anytime you talk about like a good number, that you're bragging and that you're putting it out there to brag. I don't know. That's just, it's a concern that I have, but it's not one that stops me from sharing. And I do think that with people who are close to you as well, it can maybe inadvertently change what they think, because I definitely found that since I shared my salary video last year, like I even noticed within my family, like normally they're not taking advantage of me or anything. I'll say that up front. But like, you go out for dinner, I offer to pay. There would be some sort of like, no, I've got this from my mom and dad. Now that doesn't happen. If I say I want to pay, they're like, yeah, we'll let Charlie pay. We know she can afford it, sort of thing.
Oh man.
So,
I love that's happening from your parents.
Yeah. which has been funny. But yeah, just wanted to share that the emotional, it is like, we're talking about it like it's like clearly everyone should do it and all that, but just want to recognize that it can be a difficult thing, and it's not easy for me, but I do it because I want to, and I believe that the struggle parts of it are worth it in the end. We have another question from Ben. Should we go into this one?
Yeah, let's do it. So Ben's asking, what is the biggest lessons? Actually, Ben, it's what are the biggest lessons you've learned from doing this podcast? Either lessons from the creation of the podcast or ideas from guests you've had on that you resonated with. Oh, man, that's a really good question. We've had so many awesome guests on here from all different kinds of walks of life and different professions, and from artists to professionals to... So I'm trying to think, man, does anything pop into your heads, ladies?
I think for me, I've been pleasantly surprised at this 3-person.
Damn it, Charlie. Yes.
Like I've been doing let's call it a duo podcast, I guess, for many years now. Like our podcast might be 6 years old nearly. That's maybe not. That's a long time. Design Life it's been going a long time. And that's been us 2 hosts. And yeah, I guess I was not dubious, but I was like, how's it going to work having 3 people hosting? Are we going to talk over each other all the time? Is it going to be weird? Is it going to be basically just everyone taking a turn to speak? But I felt like it's been a really good format for us. We do talk over each other, but it feels natural. It feels like a conversation.
Well, let's be honest here. It's really me that talks over the 2 of you. You know, Miguel never talks over either one of us.
Almost to a fault, I would say.
Yeah, almost to a fault.
Well, that's one of the things that I've learned is that especially when there's 4 people and there's 3 of us and there's a guest, I also always sometimes feel like I'm kind of just like a fly on the wall, and I'm like trying to kind of, trying to get in there, and I'm just like, well, it's been, I think, 25 minutes and I haven't said a word. So I'm just like, I'm just going to steamroll over the next thing that's said, and I don't give a shit. So,
but that actually, I don't want to say I like that, but I feel like your questions, when there's 4 people on the podcast, your questions are always the most introspective because you're sitting back and listening. And unfortunately, this is a skill that I have to work on, but sometimes I get so focused on the thing that I want to say next that I have a hard time active listening, you know, and that's something that I really work on in both my personal life and my professional life as well. But the podcast has been a great place for me to like practice that habit, you know, whereas like really practice that habit in a different environment that really requires it, you know? And so that's been something that I've been working on. Not great at it, you know, but I've been working on it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the dynamic of a 3-person conversation is nice because sometimes 2 people will be talking directly to each other. And if you're that 3rd person, you can be more of an active listener, like you said, and you don't have to be worrying about like, I have to come up with something to what they're saying right now, because there'll be that awkward silence if I don't. So then maybe I'm not listening as well because I'm too worried about what I'm going to say next. So it's just kind of nice to just kind of sit back and take the sidelines for a moment while 2 people are kind of going back and forth, and then sort of inserting your perspective in there. And it takes the conversation into cooler places instead of just kind of like a tennis match.
Yeah. Another thing I've really enjoyed doing on this podcast, or I think I've learned that is a great format for having like an intellectual conversation, is adding in an article into it. That's been something that I feel like has worked really well for us. Because there's so many talking points, you know, like all 3 of us have our own separate ConvertKit roles and jobs. And not to say that this podcast takes a backseat to those things, but oftentimes it's not something that we prioritize as well as we should, you know, and so when we have an article where we're talking about a specific something specific that's happening in the creator economy, I feel like that has been that's just been a great resource for us, I think.
Yeah. And you know what? Maybe now is a good time to ask for feedback on this show from our listeners, because we took over the show in January. So it's been about 6 months now, right?
Yeah.
That we have been the hosts of The Future Belongs to Creators. And we are aware that it is a very different show from when Nathan and Barrett hosted it. You don't get a Barrett dance and a song at the start of every episode.
You don't get Portland weather every episode. Yeah.
Nope.
So
you know,
instantly already a better podcast.
Ooh. Shots
Did I just get
fired.
fired? I think I just got fired.
But no, honestly, I'd love to hear what people are thinking about this new version of the show. Or maybe you discovered this show when we took it over and this is the only version you've ever known. Your feedback is still very valuable to us. Let us know. I guess maybe tweet us at ConvertKit and you can just be like, I've got some feedback on The Future Belongs to Creators. We'd love to hear about it. Yeah.
But I think it's interesting. The second half of Ben's question, going back to that real quick, is talking about ideas from guests that you've resonated with. Ben actually was a guest on our show and also a co-host once, not that long ago. So I've had a chance to talk to Ben a little bit about this. And one of the things that I've always struggled with was I feel pressure coming up with topics for us to talk about, because I feel like it's really important to keep the quality of the show to the point of, if I'm a listener, I want the topics to be relevant to me. I want them to be something I'm excited about. If I'm taking the time to tune in, I want it to be worth my time. And I feel like I have a big responsibility to our listeners to make sure that it's something that's enjoyable for them, at the very least informative. And but seeing Ben showed it off when he was co-hosting, I think, or maybe we just talked about it, but he had this long list of topics for his podcast that he had never done. And I'm talking like maybe 100, maybe more in there, of just ones he's done and hasn't done. And he just like has a running doc where he just throws ideas in there. And I was blown away by that, because I feel like almost every couple of weeks I run through my backlog of ideas, and I'm like trying really hard to come up with the next batch of topic ideas. I don't know if you ladies have had this experience too, but one of the things that have resonated with me from Ben is just being more proactive about brainstorming those ideas, and then maybe highlighting the ones that I really want to talk about, or maybe just letting them sit and then coming back to them, and then maybe deciding it's not a good idea, or maybe that'll spark a new idea and I'll have an even better topic or something like that.
Yeah. One of my favorite guests has been Josh, who Haley works with on Creator Sessions. I feel like that was a really good episode. And I learned a lot from it, from a side of the music industry that I just like didn't know about.
Yeah.
It was a fun podcast episode to like where we were learning along with our listeners, really. Because I've been like a huge music fan. Music's been a big part of my life for a very long time. But there was a lot that I didn't know that went into it. And so I loved that episode. Would highly recommend a listen. I don't know what episode number it is, but you'll figure it out if you want to listen to it from me talking about it.
It's funny about that, because I've been working with Josh for, I mentioned this on that podcast, but I've been working with Josh for almost a year, a little over a year now. I think we started working together last May, maybe March, April. And man, he is just like a wealth of inspiration all the time. He does it all. And but it was the very first time that we were on a Zoom, or not Zoom, like we always talk on the phone. And I just found that to be such a fun episode for so many reasons. But that was also one of them. I was like, Josh, in like real life.
Into the face-to-face. Yeah.
Yeah, that was fun. Miguel just said that Josh was episode 115. Yeah.
Nice.
I do like Melanie's question here though.
Oops, sorry, you clicked on at the same time.
What do you do when you're feeling creatively uninspired or unmotivated? And as soon as you asked this question, Melanie, I knew my answer. I struggle to be creative when I'm in my own head. So what I do personally is I will ask for like a call, or I'll get on a call with Charlie, and I can if we just start spitballing, not necessarily like we're spitballing to come up with an idea, but we just start talking, and we're talking about the future, what something looks like, or, ideas, or maybe not necessarily ideas. Then all of a sudden ideas start flowing in my mind. But I am really creatively inspired when I'm around other creative people. And so I try to get into that space rather than sitting in my own aloneness. I don't know, it's really hard for me to get out of that stage. And sometimes what I think is really interesting is it doesn't always require me necessarily to be talking to someone, but I could just be at a coffee shop and I can feel the energy around me. And I know this last year, that maybe hasn't necessarily been a thing, but feeling the energy of other creative entrepreneurs or creative people, whether that's in conversation or in an environment where there's just energy, is always the thing that gets me out of that creative rut. It's funny because one of the people that I feel like I've always done that with is my mom. Because with my mom is 20,000 times more creative than I am. She's like, I can strategize, but she can execute. She's very tactilely creative. So she can draw. She's just very talented, draw, paint, all the things. She's like Martha Stewart on steroids is what I usually say. But when it starts, my mom will throw out an idea. And because she's my mom, I feel comfortable being like, nah, I got it. I don't even need you anymore, and then I can just roll with it.
Because you had that conversation and talked it through.
Yeah, she's just always been this person. I'll like bounce an idea off of her and she'll come back with something. And then as soon as she comes back with someone, I'm like, nope, I got it. All right, bye. Thanks for the help.
I think it's really important to it's great that you know what you need to be creatively inspired and like what to do to get out of that rut. Because I don't know, that's something I'd recommend every creative figures out. And I guess the way to do it is to note like, okay, I'm feeling in the flow right now. What led to this? Like, how did I get here? So that when you're out of it, maybe you can learn from that to find ways to get back in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I find that for me, my environment, what I'm currently surrounded by, tends to affect me a lot. So I try to set up my environment around me. I try to set myself up for success. And if I find that where I am isn't really working out for me, like maybe I've just been in this room all day long and I'm just feeling weird or I'm feeling uninspired. Maybe what I need to do is go work somewhere else. Maybe that means some other part of my house, maybe someplace that gets more sunlight. Maybe I just need to go walk my dog or go for a run, but I just need to be somewhere else. And because I just feel like I've sort of like painted myself into a corner here. So maybe I try to open up my surroundings to invite more things that might happen to me that might spark an idea or something. On my walk with my dog, I might see something or bump into someone or just my dog might make me laugh doing something silly or hilarious.
Jake.
Jake, so, and then that might kind of like get me out of where I am mentally and sort of get me unstuck and thinking about something else. Because if you're stuck and you realize, wait, I've been in here for hours. Let me get myself out of here,
That reminds me, actually before this, because I love it so much, I was watching Charlie's YouTube episode on her art gallery wall. One of the things she said in it was that so much of her art on her wall this is her office, this is her workspace, her creative space. And sometimes she needs to hear and see the message that's, resounding like around her. And, like the banner, which I can see behind you, the Oxford, the pennant, you'll think of something. And just looking at that has been, I love that pennant. I remember as soon as I saw it, I was like, I need to have that. But I think having a creative space that you sit in every day is also something that can be really inspiring when you're in a room with 4 white walls. That might not necessarily evoke the most inspiring or, most.
That's what some people need to feel inspired, is to not have the distraction. I had an email from someone being like, does your gallery wall ever cause you problems with focus, or like, does it distract you? And I'm like, what the fuck? No, it doesn't. It's great. But that's what some people need. I'm similar to you. Did you just drop the F-bomb? I may have accidentally, but we brushed past it. Let's move on.
Haley, you can't say it now.
I took it for the episode. I feel like I always take it.
No, I thought I was going to be the one that always took it, but nope. Charlie coming in hot.
I had someone actually, because on my gallery wall, if I just turn my camera around a little bit, you can see there's a print here that has an F-bomb on it. And I had someone comment on that video you're talking about, Haley, being like, there's one I don't like. It's right next to your Future Belongs to Creators banner, and it's uncouth. And I was like, okay, well, whatever.
Oh boy.
Whatever.
Better things
You
to
know
worry
what's funny
about
about that is I actually, if I opened up showed you my tabs, I went onto your site where your gallery wall links were, because I've asked you about that one before. I just, didn't pull the trigger when I had it or when you had told me about it. And I have it up in an open tab right now,
Nice.
so I could
Ready
buy
to
it.
purchase.
So
I love it. If anyone else is looking for an F-bomb print for their wall, it's on Tin One Studios website.
Yeah.
But okay, can I just say before we get too much off track, I'm very similar to you, Miguel, in terms of what to do and feeling uninspired. Is I need to change. Like if I get into a rut and I get stuck, I need to completely change out of it. I have this desktop computer I'm on right now, and I also have a MacBook. So I will often literally stop using this computer that I've been stuck on and go use a different one to try and get out of it. And I'll sit in a different place in my house to, just try and break free of those bad vibes that were plaguing me previously. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have this question here from Emily, which I think is a good one. How do you handle growth and momentum on your side gig when you can't give it the attention it needs? I feel like this is something, Haley, that you experienced with Happy Houseplant, right? We talked about this a while ago in an episode about how you knew you couldn't take part in the growth of it because it was requiring too much of you.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately what I did, I don't know if it's the right answer, but what I did is I just had to walk away from it,
Well, I think it's an answer. I don't think there is a right answer here, right? It's whatever works for you.
Yeah, it was, I mean, we've obviously talked about this, but there was, we had some personal family things going on. And then I had, my kids were in COVID, and my business partner has Mandy, she's actually filming a show right now for Magnolia Network. So she had a lot of things that were going on. And so she really needed me to come in and step in. And ultimately I made the decision that it just wasn't the right time for me to pursue a side gig. And the challenge with Happy Houseplant for me was that I was also launching creator sessions at the time, right? And there were so many things that I had to learn inside this other thing that I was doing that I was prioritizing. I sometimes it's hard for me to correlate because obviously I work for ConvertKit and I'm not an entrepreneur in that way, and Happy Houseplant was my entrepreneurial gig. And so the challenges that maybe I faced with that side hustle is more applicable, right? But ConvertKit to me was my priority, that for me was my, was the way that I, feed my family and things like that. And so I would say that was hard because Happy Houseplant is doing really well monetarily, and it was a really hard thing to step away from.
Yeah.
I just talked to my husband about it the other day, actually, and I said that could have offered us significantly more financial freedom if I could just have stuck it out. But I have to be comfortable with my decision, and I ultimately decided I needed to put my family first, and there's always I can always go back if I choose to do that. The door is not closed for me. It's just it was closed for me at the founder partner level type thing. And so in that way, but I don't know if I answered your question. It was just more.
I love your story about this, Haley, because I think it's the reality for a lot of people, and it doesn't get talked about enough. We only hear about the big successes of I did this thing and it worked out great, and not the I had to make this really hard decision to walk away from something that had potential just because of the lack of capacity. And that's a reality for anyone creating on the side. And I would say that my answer to it is kind of similar in that there's a lot of things that I don't do in terms of my side gig because I just can't give it the attention that it needs. I've had so many people tell me you should be making a course. That's where the money is, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, I get it, but I just can't. I just cannot fathom making a course right now. It just can't be a priority for me, and that can't be something that I focus on. So yeah, but maybe for the stuff that I am doing for my side gig that is growing and has momentum, I've outsourced a lot of people. We had Chloe on the last episode, right? I've outsourced a lot of my content production management stuff to her, which has helped me give attention to the creating side of things, which has been fun. I'm glad to be at a point with my side gigs where I can invest in stuff like that. I think I spent, because I totaled it out for this income report, like £15,000 on freelancer fees in the past year, which is, I don't know, 20 something thousand US dollars, which is a lot of money if I thought about paying that from like my paycheck. But because my side gigs are bringing in money, it all works out.
Yeah, I don't necessarily have a side hustle per se, but I do have people always asking me to make things out of wood for them, and this is
Like
a very
Haley?
time.
Yeah,
This is a very
ship it. It's fine. I mean, it's not, or just put it on a plane when you come to Idaho. Yeah.
With you, it's easy because you're 2,000 miles away, so I can easily be like, "Sorry, you're just too far." But the people that are like within my geographical circle, of course, my instinct is I always want to say yes. I always want to come through. I always want to come through for them, and it's always fun. But it's just it's a time suck to work on something like woodworking, especially to the quality where you would feel comfortable someone's giving you money for it, or at the very least it's like a close family friend that you want to give them something nice, and you don't want to give them a chair that they sit in.
Okay.
Good Lord. Hello, blowing past that. They sit in this chair and it falls asleep. La 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 la. So you don't want to give them something that falls apart after they use it 4 times either. So anyways, man, I can't even think anymore. Anyways,
going off the rails.
Well, damn it to hell. All that to say is,
you say no.
That's not very. That's not. Yeah. You have to say no. But the way that I found to go around this is things that are local. For example, my barber is branching out and starting his own barber shop, and he's a great guy. He's my age, and he wants to go out on his own, and he has a very specific sort of like mid-century modern sort of aesthetic that he wants to do his barbershop in. And I've made stuff for him before, and he likes the things that I make, and he wants me to basically build out all the cabinetry and benches and like do his entire new barbershop. And I'm like, that sounds like a dream come true to take on a project that ambitious. And I am very worried that I don't have the time that he needs, because I know that if I don't come through, he's opening in 2 months. So I don't want my desire to do something that fun end up screwing him over because I don't have the time to give it. So I have a really hard decision to make in that saying yes or no to this. And if I do say yes, it's basically going to eat up all of my weekends for the next 2 months to do it at the quality and level that I want to do it at. So that's tough because
it's a responsible
like
choice
Haley,
to make, though.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's not just, I have to make sure that I do what's right for him. So in this case, to kind of port this over to what we do here, is you have to make sure that what you're doing is ultimately also good, not just for you, but for your audience or those people who are, you maybe come to rely or expect with something that you're doing. Maybe it's a weekly newsletter or whatever it is. So my advice would be just to communicate as much as possible. Don't just ghost people. Don't just start doing it every other week or whatever. Just be like, hey, life's changing. This is what's going on. This is what I can commit to and still do it at a level that I'm proud at. And I think that's okay.
Yeah. And I've learned the hard way, Miguel, in terms of taking on a project that I really shouldn't have. A few years ago, I took on this freelance website project that just did not go well. Like, I did the design and build, and then when we shipped it, there was issues and bugs, and I just didn't know how to fix them. And I really let down my client, who was also a friend. It was, not a good situation. And so I learned from that that I'm terrible at scoping that kind of work and probably shouldn't be taking it on freelance, when there's a set deadline for a client. So you had the foresight to decline from the start, which was much better than how I approached it.
Well, all right, ladies. Well, these have been really good questions. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Melanie, Emily, Ben, everybody who's contributed. Sorry if I left someone out. Mysteriously, Teddy isn't here. I hope he's feeling okay.
Yeah,
Mysteriously.
maybe
I thought about that
without
same
kidding.
thing.
or
I was
maybe
like,
or maybe he is
Betty.
here and he's just kind of doing the Miguel thing and lying in the shadows, waiting for his
Yeah.
turn. But
I also want to
alas-
shout out Melanie because Melanie said that they didn't know that there was a previous version of this show. So we are the future
Yes.
unspreaders to Melanie, and I really like that.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that so much.
yeah, the future belongs to the three of us,
Us, yeah.
as far as this podcast is concerned.
Who's Nathan and Barrett? Who
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't
are
know.
they?
Yeah, they were just the ones that did 99 episodes, so we could roll in out of nowhere and be like, "Boom, 100
Episode
episodes,
100.
baby!"
Yeah.
Yeah, that was good.
All right.
All
Well,
right.
ladies, as always, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thanks again to everybody who asked great questions. Thank you for everyone who tuned in live, and hope to see you next week.
See you then.
Goodbye.
Bye.